Hello everyone, I'm Michael Serapio. North America's automakers are getting the duty-free treatment for the next 30 days, told their Canadian and Mexican operations will not be subjected to Trump's punishing 25% tariffs in that time frame. But there is a catch. Trump is not doing this to save them from economic pain, but to give the automakers time to pull up stakes, leave Canada and Mexico, then set up shop in the U.S.
Does he expect them to be able to shift production within a month?
He told them that they should get on it, start investing, start moving, shift production here to the United States of America, where they will pay no tariff. That's the ultimate goal.
Well, joining us now is Canada's Minister of Transport and Internal Trade, Anita Anand. Minister, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Great to see you too, Michael.
Listen, I feel like I should also introduce you as the Member of Parliament for Oakville when talking about automakers, because thousands of jobs in your riding are dependent on one particular automaker. Are you worried that the auto companies are going to listen to Donald Trump's call, pick up stakes, and move south of the border?
Listen, the automakers that I know, the workers that I know here in Oakville are very proud Canadians, and they share the sentiment that many of us share across this country, that we are stronger together, we have our elbows up, and will continue to work hard to build the Canadian economy and Canadian industry. So we saw that 1 month reprieve from the White House today, but we as a government are going to continue to push back. There's no halfway. We need to make sure that those tariffs are lifted. They're unjustifiable, and they are also contrary to the free trade agreement that Donald Trump himself signed in 2017.
And I also know, as we heard from the Prime Minister yesterday, that it will be challenged at the WTO as well as the CUSMA dispute settlement mechanism. But, you know, we've heard time and again how integrated the North American economy is, in particular when it comes to automakers. Are you worried that arguments, however well-formed they are not going to convince a president who is so American nationalist in his outlook?
Listen, I do continue to keep my hand steady at the wheel, as we must always do. But tariffs are not good for anyone. They raise prices, they slow economic growth, they increase unemployment, and they cut profits. So these 25% tariffs are going to be negative and very difficult for families and businesses and the American economy writ large, as they are for Canada. But there are states, Republican states in fact, who are wholly dependent on imports to fuel their economy. Let's take Texas, for example. I met with one of the congressmen from Texas, and I'll say that Texas exports $35.9 billion in goods to Canada. It imports $37 billion worth of goods from Canada, and it has 763 companies employing about 74,000 Canadians. Let's just say we've got a lot of work to do in order to ensure that the impact of these tariffs are going to really be felt on both sides of the border. And sorry, that's 74,000 Americans, not Canadians, but let's just say their workforce depends on this bilateral trade relationship, Michael.
Now, one of the responses is, of course, dismantling internal trade barriers, a file that you are in charge of for the government. Where do things stand right now on that? Because I think Canadians are looking at that as one way of being a significant counter to anything Donald Trump may do.
Exactly. Well made. Point well made. $200 billion that can be delivered to the Canadian economy if we dismantle barriers to trade. And that's the work that I'm doing with the provinces and territories right now. The federal government has already agreed to get rid of more than half of the exceptions in the Canadian Free Trade Agreement signed in 2017. Those exceptions relate to things like procurement and financial services. The provinces and territories have their work to do now to decrease their exceptions in the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. I'm encouraging them to be bold, and they are really unified in terms of the desire to mitigate the effects of Trump tariffs, to grow the Canadian economy without going through Donald Trump, and to diversify our internal supply chains.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I have to get back to Donald Trump here, though, because then I hear it's in the provinces, so we're going to be watching how that progresses when it comes to internal trade. But I wonder how we need to deal with Donald Trump, because of the many portfolios you've had, one of them, of course, was with defense. You're very instrumental in delivering Canada's part in the defense of Ukraine. We've now seen Donald Trump punish Ukraine. We've seen Donald Trump adopt Russian disinformation, praise Vladimir Putin, and talking about annexing this country. How should we deal and treat Donald Trump, given all that we've seen in the last few weeks?
We need to continue to increase our defense spending, and we need to reach 2% as quickly as possible. At the same time, we have to remember that we are together with Ukraine and most of the countries in Europe and around the world to stand in defense of the rules-based international order. Ukraine is fighting for its sovereignty, but it is also standing up for that rules-based international order, for the concept of territorial integrity, which is so fundamental. And so Canada stands with Ukraine and stands with our allies in terms of defending the rules-based international order, and that's exactly what I did when I was in the defense portfolio, and what I'll continue to do.
But you'll continue to do it. In fact, and before we're done, I do also want to ask about your decision to run again, which is a change in course for you. How much of that had to do with the improving numbers for Liberals, in particular under potentially Mark Carney, who you have endorsed? Is that what motivated you to come back and run for re-election?
Not in the slightest. If you take a look at the statistics here in my riding of Oakville, it's a very tight race. There are definitely no guarantees here, and I'm going to have to work really hard to win my seat. So no, this was not a decision based on polling. This was a decision based on the existential economic crisis in which we are finding ourselves right now against the United States, and the need to lower barriers to trade in Canada, a file that I am leading. And my mom always told me to serve my country, and this was a time that I could simply not step back from. I need to continue to do my part, as do we all, in a very patriotic fashion for our country during this very difficult time.
Difficult indeed. Minister Anand, always appreciate the time. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Michael. Take care.
You too.